Pie by Patricia McLaughlin, which I actually met this author. Mrs. Shipman and I took a class, and she was one of the authors that we got to meet. So my kids love this book. And I just chose one of the puppies that I kind of like. He's called Mr. Beefy. I am not thin, but I am beautiful. When no one is looking, I steal tubs of butter off the
To choose a favorite book, as you can imagine. It took me days, but I chose a story by Bird Baylor because I love her, and I'm hoping that it's one you've never heard before. I'm in charge of Celebrations by Bird Baylor. I put myself in charge. I chose my own celebrations. Last year, I gave myself 108 celebrations, besides the ones that they closed school for. I cannot get by with only a few. Friend, I'll tell you, this is how it works. I keep a notebook, and I write the date, and then I write about the celebration. I'm very choosy over what goes in that book. It has to be something that I plan to remember for the rest of my life. You can tell what's worth a celebration because your heart will pound and you'll feel like you're standing on top of a mountain and you'll catch your breath like you were breathing some new kind of air.
Winn-Dixie, one of my favorite stories. I love this story because you ever see yourself in a character? You can recognize something about the character within yourself. That's how I feel about the main character, Opal, in this story. And I love the author's message that he sends. Winn-Dixie looked up at the preacher. He pulled back his lips and showed the preacher all of his crooked yellow teeth and wagged his tail and knocked some of the preacher's papers off of the table. Then he sneezed some more, and papers fluttered to the floor. "What did you call this dog?" the preacher asked. "Winn-Dixie," I whispered. I was afraid to say anything too loud. I could see that Winn-Dixie was having a good effect on the preacher. He was making him poke his head out of his shell. "Well," said the preacher, "he's the straightest if I've ever seen one." He put down his pencil and scratched Winn-Dixie behind the ears. "And the less fortunate, too, that's for sure. Are you looking for a home?" the preacher asked real soft to Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie wagged his tail. "Well," said the preacher, "I guess you found one."
The night that Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind. His mother called him Wild Thing and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he went to bed. He was sent to bed without eating anything. The very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And we have that forest down in the hallway.
My goodness, she said with a shake of her head. What we have here is a bad case of stress. One of the worst I've ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "these might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," replied the old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans." "I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camellia. Camellia wanted a big heaping plate full of lima beans more than just about anything. But she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." Raise your hand if you like lima beans.
The Little Engine That Could. And I chose this book because it was read to me a lot as a child. And my parents encouraged me to think about the story that's in it. The story is of an engine who used her talents and tried her very best, and she was able to make it over the mountain. "I'm not very big," said the little blue engine. "They only use me for switching trains in the yard. I've never been over the mountain." "But we must get over the mountain before the children awake," said all the dolls and toys. The very little engine looked up and saw the tears in the doll's eyes. And she thought of the good little boys and girls on the other side of the mountain who would not have any toys and any good food unless she helped. Then she said, "I think I can, I think I can, I think I can." And she hitched herself to the little train.
To my fourth graders when I taught fourth grade, which was a few years ago, And it's kind of a book that I haven't forgotten about, and it seems to be, or it is, very appropriate to the past few days and actually for the past winter. And it's titled Snow. The couple of the reasons why I like this book is because it has beautiful illustrations, and you can really make a lot of connections to this book, a lot of text to self connections. And the page I've chosen is one where maybe, hopefully, you'll be able to do this yourselves in the next couple of days. Once again, it's called Snow by Cynthia Rylant. Children love snow better than anyone does, and they never complain as they pull on their red boots and mittens and make plans to catch wet snowflakes on their tongues. So maybe...
Books has always been, oh, the places you will go, because it's silly phrases, but really great advice for kids and adults. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far, and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left. Books has always been, oh, the places you will go, because it's silly phrases, but really great advice for kids and adults. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far, and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left.
So I like books that kids can help me out with. My class is going to help me out a little bit. And books that have a little bit of a song and rhyme to them. So this is a silly story about a little girl who painted her whole house inside, everywhere. And when her mother caught her, her mother said to her, "You are not going to paint anymore." So she didn't paint the house. She started painting herself. So see if you can guess what she paints. So it's ready. I'm just going to do the end. Like an Easter egg, I'm going to paint my leg. There's her leg. And then she says, "Now I ain't going to paint no more. Still I ain't complete till I paint my feet. Now I ain't going to paint no more. I ain't gonna paint no more, no more. I ain't gonna paint no more. But I'm such a nut, I'm gonna paint my Y'all don't faint.
A Roald Dahl. One of my favorite books of his is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Everybody was watching Violet Beauregard as she stood there chewing this extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her, absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips as they pressed and unpressed with the chewing. And Grandpa Joe stood beside him, gaping at the girl. Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands and saying, "No, no, 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 it isn't ready for eating, it isn't right, you mustn't do it." "Blueberry pie and cream," shouted Violet. "Here it comes, oh my, it's perfect, it's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it, as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoonfuls of the most marvelous blueberry pie."
Because it teaches a lesson.
The Lorax.
So, listen to what happens. "And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day, I've sat here and worried away. Through the years, while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all of my heart. But now," says the Onceler, "now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. it's not.
One of my favorite authors is Shel Silverstein, and this is one of my favorite books by Shel Silverstein, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And what's neat about this, if you open up the cover, I have had this book since I was a little girl. This is my name for when I was 7 or 8 years old, so I have been reading this particular book since then. One of my favorite poems is called Pancake. Who wants a pancake? Sweet and piping hot. Good little Grace smiles and says, I'll take the one at the top. Who else wants a pancake fresh off the griddle? Terrible Teresa smiles and says, I'll take the one in the middle.
Is Dr. Seuss, and Read Aloud's day actually coincides with his birthday, so I chose one of my favorite short stories by Dr. Seuss called The Sneetches. And in this story, some Sneetches have stars on their bellies and others don't, and that seems to cause a problem with them until they learn a lesson. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm quite happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. That day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches, and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day all the Sneetches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not upon theirs.
Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein, one of my favorites, and this poem is called Orchestra. So you haven't got a drum, just beat your belly. So I haven't got a horn, I'll play my nose. So we haven't got any cymbals, we'll just slap our hands together. And though there may be orchestras that sound a little better with their fancy, shiny instruments that cost an awful lot. Hey, we're making music twice as good, but playing what we've got.
Ellsworth, and he's kind of creepy. So this is about, his books are a little weird. This is about a witch's broom that gets too old and it can't fly anymore. So this widow takes in this broom, and we will find out what happens to this broom. They open the closet door, revealing the slumbering broom. One of the farmers took it out and gently held it against the stake, while the others wrapped it in yards of rope. They carried the broom outside and drove the stake into the ground and gathered straw around it. Mr. Spivey lit the fire. In no time, flames turned the broom to ashes. Life soon returned to normal around the widow's farm. The Spivies even found their dog, healthy but hungry, caught in the branches of a spruce tree.
In a cave in the woods, in his deep, dark lair, through the long, cold winter, sleeps a great brown bear. Curled in a heap, with his eyes shut tight, he sleeps through the day, he sleeps through the night. The cold wind howls, and the night sounds growl, but the bear, anybody know? Snores.
Share the crocodile's toothache with you. The crocodile went to the dentist and sat down in the chair, and the dentist said, "Now tell me, sir, why does it hurt and where?" And the crocodile said, "I'll tell you the truth, I have a terrible ache in my tooth." And he opened his jaws so wide, that the dentist, he climbed right inside. And the dentist laughed, "Oh, isn't this fun?" as he pulled out the tooth one by one. And the crocodile cried, "You're hurting me so. Please put down your pliers and let me go."
Jan Brett, I love all of her books, and one of my favorites is called Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I'm sure you may have heard it. Upon this, the three bears, seeing that someone had entered their house and eaten up little small wee bear's breakfast, began to look about them. Now Goldilocks had not put the hard cushion straight when she rose from the chair of the great huge bear. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said the great huge bear in his great rough, gruff voice. And Goldilocks had crumpled the soft cushion of the middle-sized bear. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said the middle-sized bear in her middle voice. And you know what Goldilocks had done to the third chair. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair and has sat the bottom right out."
Because I get to teach math. And this is how it starts. On Monday in math class, Mrs. Fibonacci says, you can think of almost everything as a math problem. On Tuesday, I started having problems.